So why am I here talking to you about a learning event on education and blended finance? Well, I'm here because of all else, I want us to succeed in breaking new ground in demonstrating the value of public-private partnerships in the education sector. First, I wanted you here because I believe that as a group, we're stronger together than what we can do individually in our own countries, firms, or offices. Second, this is a learning event. Learning, to me, is more than just gaining knowledge. Learning is putting knowledge into action.
How do we mobilize greater private finance? How do we increase access for the poor? And lastly, to improve learning outcomes for the poor. So now we, right here, are in a very critical moment. As 3 years has passed by us, so it's incumbent for us to build the case by ensuring that both at the country level and at the global multi-country level, that key data is captured, that learning is prioritized by having data synthesized, analyzed, and by developing key knowledge products in various formats. And thirdly, to disseminate widely and communicate widely in our respective organizations the learnings from this activity.
I think education finance is almost like a misnomer within this context. I mean, we already know there's no purely commercial solution to financing education. We also know that if we only focus on the concessional finance pieces of this, there's never going to be enough money to go around and to address the massive demand, right? So what's the answer? And it may not bring comfort to everybody here. It's not simple. It's just never going to be simple. The answer is going to be in a mix. And so how will we know that we're successful in our efforts? And for me and for Palladium, a big part of our success comes from the ground up, making sure that those that we're trying to help are at the forefront of our minds in terms of designing and scaling solutions. If the students and the families and the educators and the principals are pleased with what we're offering and where their schools are headed, and we are meeting their educational needs, we've hit that vein.
I've really enjoyed the presentation so far. I realize we all are taking kind of different angles in how we're integrating information. So I'm actually going to do something a little bit different and start by telling us a story and really focusing on the opportunity of what we understand we're here. I'm going to tell you the story of Patient, because Patient is the story of the low-fee private school sector. Patient started College Adora in Bukavu, DRC in 2004. He started his school with just 4 primary classes and 49 students. When he speaks about the founding of the school, he talks about the ways in which it was difficult in the beginning, the ways in which he couldn't even pay himself a salary, but he's always been primarily committed to delivering quality education. And now, through Catalyze EduFinance, he's committed to learning more ways to improve and invest in quality education. And so what you can see here is the delta between when he started in 2004, just 49 primary school students, 4 teachers, and in 2020, he's reporting 900 in enrollment all the way from pre-primary to secondary. So again, we see that growth and how schools begin to accommodate their learners. He reports that there's 96 orphans and vulnerable children included in his school. So again, when we think about equity, we think about this story. Employs 42 teachers and offers 23 classes. So the growth is significant. And he proudly reports that last semester, more than half of the best performing students in class were girls. So again, trying to sell you the case that I know you already have bought into, but imagine what school leaders like Patient can do for education with more access to capital and training.
I think at the macro level, since we are at the macroeconomic factors, there are a couple of things. First of all, in Pakistan, for example, what has really helped is that the government has categorized education lending as priority sector lending. All the banks have a certain quota to meet in terms of priority sector lending. And banks in any market are the cheapest source of capital, right? I mean, if you went to any non-banking institution, they are borrowing from banks and therefore they have to mark up the rates. So the only way to get banks interested into education, or rather a very powerful way, is by putting education financing as part of priority sector lending. Non-state is just one of the ways to give better learning outcomes to the child. So all of us have to be aligned. So this whole debate around state versus non-state has to stop. And anything that is helping improve learning outcomes for our children needs to be supported.
We talked about financing, and financing being very expensive. And its effect on that is that schools still go ahead to access financing like at 100%. And indeed, they go ahead and put in place infrastructure and other services that improve the quality of education in those schools. But when that happens, the cost of that education goes high. So in as much as the quality is improving, but access now reduces. Secondly, it is about there is some kind of dichotomy in most of sub-Saharan countries between public and private education. The expectation, and when we talked about policy, and I think my colleague talked about government, coming in to act as collateral, for financing for private schools. But you see, sometimes what is happening is that government is looking at private schools as competition for public schools. And that is a very big problem.
I think we really wanted, and our objective was to have an honest, substantive, energized conversation about what's working, what can be built upon, what the challenges are, what the impacts we're making, how to make this program even more high impact. And frankly, there's so many priorities, of course, in our planet. I mean, there's climate change to combat, there's democracy and stability issues, there's economic growth and jobs, health, of course. So there's many, many priorities. But education is such a building block, of course, for development. And I just hope and would like governments to take away that there's a lot of energy in this sector. There's a lot of both financial capital as well as human capital, the potential to just unlock and really think of it as not a zero-sum game in a way between public and private, but it's really a win-win and can be thought of as a win-win. So that would be something I would like governments to take away from this.